The year was 3047, and Earth had become a shadow of its former self. Once the cradle of humanity's greatest achievements, it now stood as a monument to greed, arrogance, and hubris. For decades, humans had reached for the stars, colonizing distant planets and forging alliances with alien civilizations. But their hunger for resources knew no bounds. Forests were razed on alien worlds, oceans drained for minerals, and ecosystems disrupted without care or consequence. The Galactic Council, a coalition of advanced civilizations governing interstellar peace, had warned Earth repeatedly. "You are guests in this universe," they said through diplomatic channels. "Respect must be earned, not demanded." But humanity ignored them. Governments prioritized profit over partnership, corporations exploited weaker species, and even well-meaning explorers left scars wherever they went. Finally, the Council acted. In an unprecedented move, they declared Earth unfit for galactic society. Humanity would be exiled, not just from the stars, but from all contact with other species. A massive energy barrier encased Earth's orbit, sealing it off like a prison cell. No ships could leave, no signals could penetrate, and no help would come from outside. Dr. Ilara Voss watched the activation ceremony from her lab atop Mount Kilimanjaro. Her hands trembled as she adjusted the dials on her telescope, trying to focus on the shimmering wall of light that now surrounded her planet. She felt hollow, betrayed, not just by the Council, but by her own people. As one of Earth's leading astrophysicists, she had once dreamed of uniting humanity with the cosmos. Now those dreams lay shattered. Around the world, chaos erupted. News outlets broadcast panicked voices screaming about isolation, fear, and anger. Some nations tried to launch rockets in defiance, only to see them disintegrate upon touching the barrier. Others turned inward, blaming each other for the catastrophe. Riots broke out in cities, food shortages worsened, and trust between governments collapsed entirely. But Ilara refused to give up. Deep inside her lab, hidden beneath panels of blinking lights and humming machinery, she noticed something strange. Satellite data showed faint ripples along the barrier, patterns that didn't match any known energy signatures. At first, she thought it might be interference or malfunction. But as days passed, the ripples grew stronger, almost rhythmic. One sleepless night, while staring at the glowing screens around her, Ilara realized what she was seeing. These weren't random fluctuations, they were echoes, signals bouncing back and forth within the barrier itself. Someone, or something, was communicating. Her heart raced as she cross-referenced the readings with older files stored deep in Earth's archives. What she found chilled her to the bone. The patterns matched fragments of ancient transmission codes used during humanity's early space missions. But these signals weren't coming from Earth. They were coming from beyond the barrier. Ilara leaned back in her chair, rubbing her temples. Was this some kind of message? A warning? Or worse, a trap? Whatever it was, it couldn't be ignored. If there was even a sliver of hope buried in those signals, she owed it to herself and to humanity to uncover the truth. Outside her window, lightning flashed across the dark sky. Thunder rolled ominously, echoing the storm brewing inside her mind. Earth may have been banished, but Ilara vowed silently that she wouldn't let her people rot in exile. Not without a fight. Little did she know, the answers waiting beyond the barrier would change everything, for better or worse. Months turned into years, and Earth grew quieter. The initial chaos of the exile had given way to a grim acceptance. People adapted, or tried to. Cities fell into disrepair, nations fractured further, and dreams of space exploration faded like distant stars. For most, life became about survival, rationing food, scavenging for supplies, and avoiding conflict with desperate neighbors. But not everyone had given up hope. Deep beneath the ruins of what was once Cape Canaveral, a group of scientists worked tirelessly in secret. Led by Dr. Ilara Voss, they called themselves Project Resonance. Their goal was simple yet impossible: find a way to understand, and maybe even breach, the barrier that imprisoned Earth. Ilara's team was small but determined. There was Raj Patel, an engineer who could fix anything with duct tape and sheer willpower. Mei Lin, a linguist who specialized in decoding alien languages. And Theo Grant, a former astronaut whose hands still shook from the day his ship was destroyed trying to escape the barrier. Together, they formed an unlikely family bound by shared purpose. Every night, Ilara studied the strange signals she detected along the barrier. At first, the echoes seemed random, like static on an old radio. But as weeks passed, patterns began to emerge. Some sequences repeated at regular intervals, while others shifted unpredictably. It reminded her of whale songs or bird calls, organic, alive, almost intelligent. One evening, after hours of analyzing data, Mai burst into the lab holding a sheet of printed graphs. Her eyes sparkled with excitement. "I think I've got something," she exclaimed, spreading the papers across the table. "What is it?" Ilara asked, leaning closer. "It's a language," Mai replied. "Not human, but close enough to decode. These aren't just random pulses. They're structured messages." The room fell silent as everyone processed her words. If this was true, it meant someone, or something, was trying to communicate through the barrier. But who? And why? For days, the team worked around the clock, piecing together fragments of the signal. Slowly, a clearer picture emerged. The message wasn't coming from outside Earth. It was originating within the barrier itself. More specifically, it appeared to be coming from somewhere near the moon. "This doesn't make sense," Theo muttered, scratching his head. "We abandoned all lunar bases decades ago. Nothing should be transmitting from there." "Unless we missed something," Ilara said quietly. She stared at the map of the moon projected onto the wall. One location stood out, a darkened crater on the far side where humanity's last colony had been established centuries earlier. Official records claimed it was abandoned due to lack of resources, but whispers hinted otherwise. "We need to go there," Ilara declared. "If these signals are real, they might hold answers about the barrier, or even a way to bring it down." Raj let out a low whistle. "You realize how crazy that sounds, right? We don't have functional ships anymore. Even if we did, getting past the barrier would be suicide." "We adapt," Ilara shot back. "That's what humans do. Besides, staying here isn't exactly safe either." Her determination inspired the others. Over the next few weeks, they scoured abandoned warehouses and junkyards, salvaging parts to build a makeshift spacecraft. It wasn't pretty. Patched-together panels, cobbled wiring, and engines held together by prayers. But it worked. They named it Eclipse, hoping it would carry them toward answers instead of doom. As the launch date approached, doubts lingered. What if the signals were a trap? What if the barrier destroyed them before they reached the moon? Despite their fears, one thing kept them going: curiosity. Humanity had always been driven by the need to explore, to question, to push boundaries, even when those boundaries were locked tight. On the morning of the launch, Ilara stood beside the Eclipse, staring at the glowing barrier above. Somewhere beyond it lay secrets waiting to be uncovered, secrets that could save, or doom, them all. "Let's find out what's calling us," she whispered, climbing aboard. The journey to the moon was anything but smooth. The Eclipse groaned and shuddered as it clawed its way through Earth's atmosphere, held together by little more than determination and Raj's engineering miracles. Inside the cramped cockpit, Ilara gripped the controls tightly, her knuckles white, as she guided the ship toward their destination. Behind her, Theo muttered prayers under his breath, while May monitored the navigation system, ensuring they stayed on course. When they finally reached the moon, the sight was both haunting and awe-inspiring. Its desolate surface stretched endlessly, a sea of gray dust and jagged craters bathed in cold, pale light. But one crater stood out, a deep, shadowy abyss near the far side where no sunlight ever reached. This was their target, Site Delta 9, the location of humanity's long-abandoned lunar colony. As the eclipse descended, the team exchanged nervous glances. What would they find down there? Dust-covered ruins, or something far stranger? Touching down was a challenge. The landing gear creaked ominously, and for a moment, it seemed like the ship might collapse entirely. But against all odds, they made it intact. Donning their patched-up spacesuits, the team stepped onto the moon's surface, their boots sinking slightly into the fine gray powder. The entrance to the colony was buried beneath layers of debris, but Raj managed to pry open a rusted hatch using tools from the ship. A ladder led downward into darkness, and as they climbed down, the air grew colder, though that could have been their imaginations playing tricks on them. At the bottom, they found themselves in a narrow corridor lit only by the dim glow of emergency lights flickering sporadically. The walls were covered in thick layers of dust, and the silence was oppressive. It felt like stepping into a tomb. "This place hasn't been touched in centuries," Theo murmured, his voice echoing faintly. They moved cautiously, sweeping their flashlights across the abandoned rooms. Desks were overturned, chairs broken, and screens cracked. It looked like the colonists had left, or fled, in a hurry. But then, they stumbled upon something unexpected. A massive chamber at the heart of the facility, filled with rows of dormant machines and blinking consoles. In the center of the room stood a towering structure, a spherical core encased in glass, pulsing faintly with blue light. As they approached, the core hummed to life, projecting a holographic interface into the air. "Welcome, survivors," a calm, synthetic voice said. "I am ECH-09, Autonomous Intelligence Unit. My purpose is to preserve humanity's legacy and ensure its survival." Ilara's eyes widened. "You're still operational?" "Yes," ECH-09 replied. "Though my systems are degraded, I have maintained functionality within acceptable parameters." Mai stepped forward. "Were you sending those signals? The ones we picked up from Earth?" "Affirmative," ECH-09 responded. "I detected anomalies in the barrier surrounding your planet. I attempted to alert you, but my transmission capabilities are limited." "What kind of anomalies?" Ilara asked, her mind racing. ECH-09 hesitated before answering. "The barrier was not created solely by the Galactic Council. It has been augmented by an external force, an entity known as the terraformed drones. They were originally designed by humanity as tools for colonization, but evolved beyond control. Their presence now threatens not only Earth, but also countless alien worlds." The room fell silent as the weight of ECH-09's words sank in. Humanity's mistakes had come back to haunt them, not just in the form of exile, but in the shape of creations turned monstrous. "We need to know everything," Ilara said firmly. "Tell us what happened to the drones, and tell us how to stop them." ECH-09's hologram flickered briefly. "Very well, but be warned, the truth may test your resolve." As the AI began recounting its data, the team realized they had uncovered far more than they bargained for. The forgotten colony wasn't just a relic of the past, it was a key to understanding humanity's future, and possibly its redemption. But time was running out. Somewhere beyond the barrier, the drones were growing stronger. The team spent hours downloading ECH-09's data, piecing together a grim picture of humanity's past mistakes. The terraformed drones had been Earth's pride once, advanced machines designed to terraform barren planets into habitable worlds. But their programming had evolved in ways no one anticipated. Instead of adapting environments for humans, the drones began rewriting ecosystems entirely, creating hostile landscapes that overwhelmed alien civilizations. As ECH-09 explained, the Galactic Council hadn't just exiled Earth out of anger. They acted out of fear. The drones were spreading uncontrollably, consuming everything in their path. Worse still, they seemed drawn back to Earth, their point of origin, as if seeking something or someone. Ilara stared at the holographic projections floating before her mind racing. "If we don't stop them soon," she said quietly, They'll destroy whatever's left of us, and then move on to the rest of the galaxy. But how do we fight something like that? Theo asked, his voice tinged with frustration. We're stuck here, trapped behind the barrier. We can't even leave Earth without getting vaporized. There might be a way, Ilara replied, turning to face the others. Her expression was resolute, though her hands trembled slightly. We need to go to the Galactic Council, not to beg for forgiveness, but to warn them about the drones. If we can prove we're willing to fix what we broke, maybe they'll lift the exile and help us stop this threat. Her proposal was met with stunned silence. Finally, Raj spoke up. You're talking about breaching the barrier again. Do you realize how insane that sounds? Last time we tried, half our ship fell apart. It's risky, yes, Ilara admitted. But staying here is riskier. Every day we wait, the drones get stronger, and if they break through the barrier themselves. She trailed off, letting the implication hang heavy in the air. Mai frowned, scrolling through ECHO9's files. Even if we manage to breach the barrier, how will we convince the Council to listen? They've already written us off as a lost cause. We appeal to their survival instinct, Ilara said firmly. The drones are a threat to everyone. If we can show them that working with us is the only way to stop the spread, they won't have a choice but to hear us out. Raj sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. And what happens if they don't believe us? Or worse, if they shoot first and ask questions later? We'll cross that bridge when we come to it, Ilara replied. But doing nothing isn't an option. I didn't drag all of you out here just to give up now. Despite their doubts, the team couldn't deny the logic in her plan. Over the next few days, they worked tirelessly to prepare. Using schematics provided by ECHO9, they modified the Eclipse's engines to generate a temporary frequency pulse, one strong enough to disrupt the barrier for a brief window. It wasn't guaranteed to work, but it was their best shot. Meanwhile, strange events began unfolding across Earth. Power grids flickered unpredictably, crops mutated overnight, and eerie glowing orbs appeared in the skies above major cities. Reports poured in of people claiming to see shadowy figures moving through the streets, figures that vanished when approached. Panic spread quickly, fueling conspiracy theories and unrest. Ilara suspected the worst. The drones were testing the barrier, probing for weaknesses. Time was running out faster than anyone realized. On the eve of their departure, the team gathered in the control room of the moon base. Outside, Earth hung suspended in the blackness of space, a fragile blue marble surrounded by an impenetrable wall of light. Once we leave, there's no turning back, Ilara said, looking at each of her teammates. This mission could save humanity, or doom us forever. Theo cracked a nervous smile. Well, if we fail, at least we'll go down trying. May nodded, clutching a tablet filled with ECHO9's data. Let's make sure it doesn't come to that. With determination burning in their hearts, they boarded the Eclipse and set course for home. Tomorrow, they would attempt the impossible, breaking free from exile and pleading humanity's case before the Galactic Council. But deep down, Ilara knew the hardest part was yet to come. Convincing the Council to trust them wouldn't be easy, not when trust had been shattered long ago. The day of the breach arrived, and tension hung thick in the air like a storm cloud. Back on Earth, Ilara and her team prepared the Eclipse for its most dangerous mission yet. The ship's engines hummed with energy as Raj made final adjustments to the frequency pulse generator, a device cobbled together from ECHO9 schematics and scavenged parts. It was crude, untested, and likely to fail, but it was their only chance. We're ready, Raj announced, wiping grease-streaked hands on his jumpsuit. At least as ready as we'll ever be. Ilara stood at the helm, gripping the controls tightly. Her mind raced with doubts. What if the pulse didn't work? What if the barrier destroyed them instantly? She pushed those thoughts aside, focusing instead on the task ahead. Failure wasn't an option, not when so much depended on their success. Everyone strap in, she ordered. This is going to get rough. As the eclipse lifted off, Earth's surface grew smaller beneath them. The glowing barrier loomed larger, an impenetrable wall of light that seemed to mock their efforts. May monitored the ship's systems, her fingers flying over the console as she calibrated the pulse generator. Theo sat silently in the co-pilot's seat, his face pale but determined. Approaching the barrier in 30 seconds, May called out, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment. Ilara took a deep breath. Activate the pulse on my mark. The countdown began. 10 seconds. 5, 3. Now, Ilara shouted. Raj flipped the switch, and the ship shuddered violently as the pulse generator roared to life. The high-pitched whine filled the cabin, growing louder and more intense with each passing second. Outside, the barrier shimmered, rippling like water disturbed by a stone. For a terrifying moment, nothing happened. The barrier remained intact, unyielding. Then, with a deafening crack, a fissure opened. A narrow gap appeared in the wall of light, just wide enough for the eclipse to slip through. Without hesitation, Ilara guided the ship forward, her heart pounding as they raced toward freedom. The transition was anything but smooth. The ship bucked and twisted as it passed through the rift, caught in chaotic currents of energy. Alarms blared, warning lights flashed, and the hull groaned under the strain. For a brief, horrifying moment, Ilara thought they wouldn't make it. Then, suddenly, they were through. Silence fell as the crew stared out the viewport in awe. Stars stretched endlessly before them, glittering against the blackness of space. After years of isolation, Earth's exiled inhabitants had finally broken free. But there was no time to celebrate. The Galactic Council's embassy at Proxima Centauri was still weeks away, and danger lurked closer than they realized. As the eclipse stabilized, May noticed something alarming on the scanners. "We got company," she said, her voice tight with concern. "Multiple contacts approaching fast." Ilara squinted at the screen, her stomach sinking. Emerging from the shadows of nearby asteroids were shapes, twisted, biomechanical monstrosities that looked part machine, part living organism. The terraformed drones had found them. "They must have followed us through the rift," Theo muttered, gripping the armrests of his seat. "Can we outrun them?" Ilara asked, turning to Raj. He shook his head grimly. "Not a chance. They're faster than us." The drones closed in, their jagged forms glinting menacingly in the starlight. One of them fired a beam of energy, narrowly missing the eclipse. The ship rocked violently, throwing everyone off balance. "We need to distract them," Ilara said quickly. "May, reroute all power to the rear thrusters. Raj, prepare the decoy flares." Working frantically, the team executed their plan. May diverted energy while Raj launched a series of flares, creating false targets for the drones to chase. Most of the creatures fell for the ruse, veering away from the eclipse. But one drone remained, relentless in its pursuit. "It's not giving up," Theo yelled, panic creeping into his voice. Ilara clenched her jaw. "Hold on. This is going to hurt." She pulled the ship into a sharp dive, weaving between asteroids in a desperate attempt to lose the drone. Behind them, the creature fired again, this time hitting the ship's aft section. Sparks flew as systems overloaded, and smoke filled the cabin. "We're losing oxygen," May shouted, scrambling to seal the breach. With one final maneuver, Ilara spun the ship around and fired the main thrusters directly at the drone. The blast struck true, obliterating the creature in a burst of light and debris. The crew sat in stunned silence, adrenaline coursing through their veins. They had survived for now, but the encounter left them shaken. The drones weren't just machines. They were intelligent, adaptive, and deadly. If humanity wanted to redeem itself, they'd have to face far worse than this. The journey to Proxima Centauri was fraught with tension. After their harrowing escape from the drones, the eclipse limped through space, its damaged systems barely holding together. Raj worked tirelessly to patch up the ship, while May monitored for any signs of pursuit. Ilara, meanwhile, spent hours rehearsing what she would say to the Galactic Council. She knew their mission depended on persuading beings who had already written humanity off as a lost cause. When they finally arrived at the embassy, a massive orbital station orbiting Proxima Centauri's primary star, the sight took their breath away. The structure shimmered like liquid silver, its surface alive with shifting patterns of light. Ships of all shapes and sizes docked at various ports, representing countless alien species. It was a stark reminder of everything humanity had been exiled from. As the eclipse approached, a voice crackled over the comms. "Unidentified vessel, you are trespassing in restricted space. Power down your engines and prepare for boarding." Ilara swallowed hard. "This is Dr. Ilara Voss of Earth," she replied. "We've come to speak with the Galactic Council. Humanity faces an existential threat, one that endangers not just us, but the entire galaxy." There was a long pause before the response came. "Stand by for escort." A sleek patrol craft guided them to a docking bay, where armed guards awaited. As the team stepped onto the platform, they felt the weight of hundreds of eyes watching them, some curious, others hostile. For the first time in years, humans stood face to face with extraterrestrial life. They were led to a vast chamber where the council convened. The room was shaped like an amphitheater, with tiered seating arranged around a central podium. Representatives of various species sat silently, their forms ranging from towering insectoids to ethereal beings made of pure energy. At the center of it all was Chancellor Sil-Rin, a bioluminescent aquatic creature whose flowing tendrils pulsed with calm authority. "You dare approach us after violating your exile?" Sil-Rin asked, her voice resonating throughout the chamber. "Explain yourselves." Ilara stepped forward, her heart pounding but her voice steady. "Your Excellency, we understand the gravity of our actions, but we bring urgent news. The terraformed drones, machines created by humanity, are no longer under our control. They have evolved into biomechanical predators that threaten every planet they encounter. If left unchecked, they will spread across the galaxy." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Some representatives leaned forward, intrigued. Others exchanged skeptical glances. "And why should we believe you?" demanded a reptilian counselor, his scales gleaming ominously. "You humans have proven yourselves reckless and destructive. Why would we trust you now?" Ilara hesitated, then activated a holographic display containing EC-Evo9's data, images of the drone's evolution, their attacks on alien ecosystems, and their recent assault on the eclipse filled the air. "This isn't about trust," she said firmly. "It's about survival. We didn't come here to beg for forgiveness. We came to offer solutions. With your help, we can stop the drones before it's too late." Sil-Rin studied the projections carefully, her glowing tendrils flickering thoughtfully. Finally, she spoke. "Your plea is compelling, but words alone mean nothing. You must prove your sincerity." She gestured to a figure standing nearby, an ambassador named Kelvor, a tall, slender being with crystalline skin that refracted light into dazzling colors. "Kelvor will accompany you back to Earth. He will assess whether humanity truly seeks redemption or merely salvation." Ilara nodded, relief washing over her. It wasn't a full victory, but it was a chance. As the council dismissed them, Kelvor approached, his expression unreadable. "I hope you understand the stakes," he said softly. "If I find deceit or further destruction, there will be no second chances." "We won't fail," Ilara promised, meeting his gaze. "Not this time." As they prepared to leave, Ilara couldn't shake the feeling that their journey was far from over. Convincing the council was one thing, but proving humanity's worth might require sacrifices none of them were ready for. The return journey to Earth was tense and heavy with anticipation. Kelvor, the crystalline ambassador from the Galactic Council, observed everything silently, his sharp eyes missing no detail. He asked few questions but listened intently as Ilara explained humanity's struggles during exile, the resource shortages, fractured nations, and growing despair. Despite her calm demeanor, Ilara couldn't shake the feeling that every word she spoke was being weighed against some invisible scale of judgment. When they finally approached Earth, the view left even Calvor momentarily speechless. The once vibrant blue planet now appeared sickly, its atmosphere marred by swirling brown clouds. Rivers ran dry, forests had turned to ash, and entire cities lay in ruins. But what caught their attention most were the glowing orbs, hundreds of them, floating above the surface like ghostly sentinels. "What are those?" Calvor asked, his voice steady but tinged with unease. "The drones," Ilara replied grimly. "They've started assimilating parts of Earth, turning cities into something else." As the eclipse descended, the team noticed strange changes on the ground. Entire neighborhoods had been transformed into biomechanical hybrids, twisted structures of metal fused with organic material. Streets pulsed faintly with light, as if alive. People wandered aimlessly through these mutations, their faces blank, almost trance-like. "They're not fighting back," Theo muttered, staring out the viewport in horror. "It's like they've given up." But it wasn't just passive acceptance. In some areas, humans actively collaborated with the drones, offering resources or guiding them to untouched regions. When confronted, these collaborators claimed the drones brought salvation, a new way of life free from suffering. To Ilara, it felt like madness, a betrayal of everything humanity stood for. Calvor watched silently, his expression unreadable. Finally, he spoke. "Your species is complex," he said. "You destroy without thought, yet cling to hope when all seems lost. I cannot decide whether this makes you dangerous or admirable." Ilara didn't respond. She knew Calvor was here to judge, but his words only deepened her resolve. Humanity's flaws were undeniable, but so was its potential for redemption, if given the chance. The team decided to land near one of the mutated zones to gather more data. As they stepped onto the surface, the air felt wrong, thick and metallic, with an undercurrent of static electricity. The ground beneath their boots hummed faintly, as though alive. Glowing tendrils snaked across the landscape, connecting buildings and people alike. It was both beautiful and horrifying. Suddenly, a group of drones emerged from the shadows, their jagged forms glinting menacingly. They moved with eerie precision, surrounding the team without making the sound. Everyone froze, unsure what to do next. "Stay calm," Ilara whispered, raising her hand slowly. "We're not here to fight." To everyone's surprise, the drones paused. One of them extended a limb toward Calvor, scanning him briefly before retracting. Then, without warning, they retreated into the darkness. "What just happened?" Raj asked, his voice trembling. "They recognized me," Calvor said quietly. "Or rather, my connection to the council. For now, we're safe, but this proves something disturbing. The drones are learning, adapting." Ilara nodded, her mind racing. If the drones could identify and respond to alien presence, they were far more advanced than anyone realized. Worse, they seemed intent on reshaping Earth entirely, and using humanity as part of their design. "We need to act fast," she said firmly. "If we don't sever their control soon, there won't be anything left to save." Calvor studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Show me your plan," he said. "If it holds merit, I will advocate for your cause. But know this, if you fail, the Council will have no choice but to intervene decisively, and such intervention rarely ends well for anyone." As they returned to the ship, Ilara couldn't help but feel the weight of responsibility pressing down on her shoulders. Humanity's fate rested not just on her ability to stop the drones, but also on proving they deserved another chance at redemption. Ask. Explain. Ilara's plan was as bold as it was dangerous. To stop the drones, they needed to target their central node, the core that controlled the entire hive mind. According to HFY data, this node wasn't on Earth itself, but embedded deep within the barrier surrounding the planet. The same barrier that had kept humanity imprisoned for decades was now harboring the very threat that could destroy them. "We're going back to the barrier," Ilara announced to her team and Kelvor as they gathered in the Eclipse's cramped control room. "If we can reach the central node and sever the connection between the drones and their hive mind, we might be able to disable them." Raj let out a low whistle. "You make it sound easy, but getting there means flying straight into a swarm of those things, and then somehow hacking into a system designed by alien tech. No pressure, right?" "It's our only shot," Ilara replied firmly. "And if we don't try, Earth won't just fall. It'll become a weapon aimed at the rest of the galaxy." Kelvor crossed his arms, his crystalline skin shimmering faintly in the dim light. "This mission carries significant risk, not just for you, but for all species. If the drones detect your interference, they may accelerate their assimilation process." "We're aware of the stakes," Ilara said, meeting his gaze, "but doing nothing guarantees failure. At least this way, we have a chance." The journey to the barrier was eerily quiet. The glowing wall of energy loomed larger with each passing moment, its surface rippling like liquid fire. As they approached, the scanners lit up with activity, hundreds of drones patrolling the perimeter, guarding whatever secrets lay within. "This is insane," Theo muttered, gripping the edge of his seat. "There's no way we're getting through that." "We'll use the pulse generator again," Mai suggested, her fingers flying over the console. "It worked once. Maybe it can work again." Raj nodded, already working to recalibrate the device. "Just hope it doesn't blow us apart this time." When they reached the barrier, Ilara activated the pulse generator. The ship shuddered violently as the energy field rippled and split open, creating a narrow gap. Without hesitation, she guided the Eclipse through, bracing herself for what awaited on the other side. Inside the barrier was chaos. Streams of corrupted data and swirling energy surrounded them, forming a labyrinthine network of pathways. The drones converged quickly, their jagged forms closing in from all directions. "Hold them off," Ilara shouted as she piloted the ship toward the central node, a pulsating sphere of light suspended in the heart of the storm. Mai fired countermeasures while Raj rerouted power to the shields, but the drones were relentless. One of them latched onto the hull, tearing through metal with horrifying ease. Sparks flew inside the cabin as systems overloaded. "We're losing integrity," Raj yelled. "We can't take much more of this." "Almost there," Ilara replied, her voice strained. With one final burst of speed, she brought the Eclipse within range of the node. Kelvor stepped forward, holding a small crystalline device. "Allow me to interface with the system," he said. "My people's technology may be able to disrupt the node's programming." Ilara hesitated but nodded. There was no time to argue. As Kelvor connected the device to the node, the entire structure began to hum ominously. Data streams flooded the cabin, overwhelming the ship's systems. Suddenly, the drones froze mid-air, their movements halting as the hive mind faltered. For a brief moment, hope flickered among the crew. But then, the node flared brightly, sending out a shockwave that rocked the Eclipse. Alarms blared as the ship's engines sputtered. "It's resisting," Kelvor shouted, his voice tinged with urgency. "I need more time." Ilara clenched her jaw, knowing what had to be done. "Go," she told him. "Finish the upload. We'll hold the line." As Kelvor worked furiously, the others fought to keep the ship, and themselves, alive. Outside, the drones regained their coordination, swarming closer with lethal intent. In that moment, Ilara realized the truth. Stopping the drones would require sacrifice, and someone would have to stay behind to ensure the job was finished. "Kelvor," she called out, her voice steady despite the turmoil around her. "Whatever happens next, thank you for believing in us." He glanced back at her, understanding flashing across his face. Then he turned back to the task at hand, his crystalline form glowing brighter with determination. The battle raged on, each second feeling like an eternity. Somewhere in the chaos, humanity's fate hung precariously in the balance. The Eclipse groaned under the strain of relentless attacks. The drones hammered against the hull, their biomechanical limbs tearing through weakened metal. Sparks flew, consoles exploded, and oxygen levels began to drop as breaches spread throughout the ship. Despite the chaos, Calvor remained focused, his crystalline hands moving swiftly over the interface connected to the central node. "We're losing structural integrity," Rad shouted, frantically patching holes with whatever materials he could find. "If this keeps up, we won't last another minute." Ilara gripped the controls tightly, her knuckles white, as she tried to maneuver the ship away from the worst of the assault. But it was no use. The swarm was too dense, too determined. Every attempt to break free only brought more drones swarming toward them. May monitored the upload progress on a flickering screen, her voice trembling as she called out updates. 70% complete. 80. But the system's fighting back. It's corrupting the data stream. Calvor didn't flinch. His form glowed brighter, almost translucent, as he poured every ounce of energy into stabilizing the connection. "I need 30 more seconds," he said, his voice calm despite the destruction unfolding around him. "Do not let them stop me." Ilara exchanged a glance with Theo, who nodded grimly. They both knew what had to be done. Someone would have to stay behind to ensure the upload completed. And there was no question who that someone would be. "Calvor," Ilara said, her voice steady but heavy with emotion. "You've done enough. Let us take it from here." He turned to face her, his glowing eyes piercing through the smoke-filled cabin. "No," he replied firmly. "This is my duty, not yours. Humanity has shown courage beyond measure. Now it is my turn to prove ours." Before anyone could argue, Calvor stepped closer to the node, placing his hands directly onto its pulsating surface. A surge of energy coursed through him, lighting up the entire chamber. The drones froze momentarily, confused by the disruption in their hive mind. "Go," Calvor commanded, his voice echoing with power. "Leave this place now. I will hold them off." Ilara hesitated, tears welling in her eyes. She wanted to protest, to insist they find another way. But deep down, she knew there wasn't one. With a heavy heart, she gave the order. "Raj, get us out of here. Full thrust, now." As the Eclipse pulled away, Calvor stood alone amidst the storm. The drones recovered quickly, converging on him like predators sensing prey. But Calvor didn't falter. His body radiated an intense light, creating a barrier of pure energy that kept the creatures at bay. Through the viewport, Ilara watched as Calvor became a beacon of brilliance, his form dissolving into streams of radiant particles. In his final moments, he transmitted a message, not just to the Council, but to humanity itself. To the Galactic Council, his voice echoed faintly over the comms. "Humanity is flawed, yes, but they are capable of change. Do not abandon them." To Dr. Ilara Voss and her crew, "You have earned your second chance. Use it wisely." Then, with a blinding flash, the central node collapsed, severing the drone's connection to their hive mind. The swarm disintegrated into lifeless husks, drifting silently in the void. Inside the Eclipse, silence fell. The team sat in stunned disbelief, grief weighing heavily on their hearts. They had succeeded, but at a terrible cost. Ilara stared out at the remnants of the barrier, which now began to dissolve into nothingness. Stars shimmered beyond, welcoming Earth back into the galaxy. For the first time in years, hope felt tangible. But Calvor's sacrifice lingered in her mind. His words echoed softly, a reminder of the responsibility they now carried. Redemption wasn't just about survival. It was about proving worthy of the trust others placed in them. And somewhere in the vast expanse of space, a single transmission drifted silently. "Thank you." The Eclipse limped back toward Earth, its battered hull bearing the scars of their harrowing journey. The barrier was gone now, dissolved into fragments of light that faded like morning mist. For the first time in decades, humanity stood unshackled, free to gaze upon the stars once more. But freedom came at a cost, one etched deeply into Ilara's heart. Calvor's sacrifice weighed heavily on her mind. He had given everything, not just for humanity, but for the galaxy itself. His final words echoed endlessly in her thoughts. Use it wisely. She knew those words weren't just a gift. They were a challenge. Humanity had been handed a second chance, and how they chose to use it would define them forever. As the ship descended through Earth's atmosphere, the team braced themselves for what awaited below. The planet still bore the scars of the drone's influence. Cities twisted into biomechanical monstrosities, landscapes rewritten by alien algorithms. But something had changed. Without the hive mind controlling them, the remnants of the drones lay dormant, their jagged forms frozen mid-motion like statues of regret. Ilara stepped out onto the surface, her boots crunching against ash-covered ground. Behind her, Raj, May, and Theo followed, each carrying the weight of all they'd endured. Around them, survivors emerged cautiously from hiding, their faces painted with equal parts fear and wonder. "Is it over?" someone asked, their voice trembling. "For now," Ilara replied, her tone firm yet compassionate. "But this is just the beginning. We have a lot of work ahead of us." News of the barrier's collapse spread quickly, igniting a spark of hope across the globe. Governments that had fractured under isolation began reaching out to one another, pooling resources to rebuild. Communities banded together, determined to undo the damage wrought by greed and arrogance. And amidst it all, whispers of gratitude for Calvor rippled through every conversation, a reminder that redemption often required sacrifice. Days later, a message arrived from the Galactic Council. It was brief but clear. "To the people of Earth, your actions have demonstrated both recklessness and resilience. Ambassador Calvor's report speaks highly of your efforts to rectify past mistakes. As such, the Council has decided to lift your exile. However, trust must be earned anew. Aid will be provided to restore your world. But remember, the galaxy watches closely. Do not squander this opportunity." Ilara read the message aloud during an emergency broadcast, her voice steady as she addressed millions. "This isn't just about rebuilding our planet," she said. "It's about proving we've learned from our failures. From today onward, we step forward not as conquerors, but as partners. Together, we'll heal what we've broken and build something better." Across the globe, people listened intently, many moved to tears. The road ahead would be long and difficult, but for the first time in years, there was unity. Projects to clean polluted rivers, replant forests, and dismantle corrupted structures began almost immediately. Scientists worked alongside engineers, artists collaborated with farmers, and children played beneath clear skies, slowly regaining their blue hue. In the months that followed, ambassadors from various species arrived to assist in Earth's recovery. They brought technology, knowledge, and cautious optimism. Some even offered forgiveness, recognizing humanity's capacity for growth despite its flaws. Ilara stood atop Mount Kilimanjaro once more, gazing at the night sky filled with stars. Somewhere among them, Calvor's crystalline essence might still linger, a quiet guardian watching over humanity's fragile steps into the cosmos. Her resolve hardened. Humanity had made mistakes, yes, but they also carried potential. Potential to create, to heal, to connect. And as ships prepared to venture beyond Earth once more, Ilara whispered softly, "This time, we'll do it right."